What's going on, everybody? LK here, and today I want to talk a little bit about Bridget. Bridget has been out for a couple of weeks. She got announced at EVO. I want to talk about how good the character is looking right now. It's been a couple of weeks. We basically have the basic game plan for what this character has. So actually, I have a checklist starting around like March or so. I made this list. It's just a list of things I think are important for characters to have in this game, because we've had this game for more than a year now, so we know generally what are strong aspects of characters and what is successful in this game. So I'm going to be going through offense, defense, neutral, and knockdown, because I believe these are the four main phases of basically any fighting game, honestly. So first, offense, we have moves that are advantageous on block or plus on block. This is digging into like frame data a little bit. Like many characters in this game, Bridget's close slash plus on block. And then this move, Kickstart My Heart, is actually variable. So it has variable frame data that could be either really disadvantageous or advantageous depending on the situation. So there's also this Stop and Dash, the yo-yo throw. So point blank, it is not advantageous. However, similarly to Kickstart My Heart, you could do it from different ranges. And last but not least, the Roger Super is plus on block. So there's a variety of moves that Bridget has that are advantageous that Bridget can use to push their turn. Then the next question is, does the character have an instant or fast overhead of some sort that you could use for mix-ups? So Bridget actually has the 50-50 off JK, and honestly, there are more ways of doing it than this one that I showed. And then there's this commonly seen meter usage that Bridget has, where you have a couple of overhead options. And you can do a low reliably from here as well. The next question is there a way for the character to make their 5D plus some way? And Bridget can definitely do that in some situations. Does the character have a 50-50? Yes, Bridget has various ways of mixing you. Between the rising overhead I showed before, this JD stalling you and being multiple hits, leading to this style of mix-up. And the yo-yo pulling out of the corner, and having a command grab on top of that. Bridget has a lot of ways of opening you up. The next question is, how fast do they gain meter? So from watching matches at least, Bridget's meter gain seems to be pretty good between multi-hitting normals having follow-ups. The character has a lot of range, so she's able to run around the screen pretty freely. Moving forward gives you meter as well, which is nice. Between using moves like Stop and Dash, rolling and all the fakes, stalling in the air with the Roger dive, Bridget is a very active character, so they're doing a lot of stuff to build meter just by playing naturally. The next question would be, what would they get off their throw situation? The mid-screen throw seems pretty good because you could just set up for free. The corner one, I generally see people set up off an OTG. You do get to pull them out of the corner, which is super nice. So I'd say the throw mix-up situation is strong. Next question would be, how good is the character against YRC? So YRC is important because the opponent can really reverse the situation depending on what character they're playing. A successful YRC, even though the meter penalty is really harsh, it puts the opponent in a plus 10 guard crush. So depending on your character, you get to set up really strong situations from here. For example, let's take Nagoryuki. Nagoryuki has a very powerful command grab, and guard crush state does not have throw protection. So on this plus 10 guard crush, you have to immediately defend an attack or bite. We all know this character bites you, you are in an awful situation. The typical spread for a character is that their jabs tend to be safe to YRC, but their kicks generally are not. And then once you get to slashes, they are generally just guaranteed to be YRC'd. There are countermeasures such as jump canceling in advance, or using BRC to protect you, but these either cost meter or require a pretty hard read. So Bridget 5P is not safe to YRC, which is pretty rare in this game, but Bridget's 5P is also much bigger than other characters. However, 5K, 2P, and 2K are all safe to YRC. It's not common for characters to have both punches and kicks be safe to YRC. Bridget has a multi-hitting close slash, which means that Bridget joins Milia in being able to option select YRCs off close slash. This is working in the weeds of the system a little bit, so what you can do actually is In the hit stop of the second hit of close slash, you can put in a jump. So what that means is on block, we see this, and on YC, we see that. To make it a little bit more consistent too, you can hit 2S with an FD input. I don't personally use the faultless defense shortcut. I manually do it every time. So when I do this input, I do it with KS. Meaning this character has many ways of dealing with YRC. Of course, this close slash thing also applies to our next question, which is how safe they are against burst. So the same thing can be done against burst, just like Milia. But outside of this point, Bridget seems pretty normal against burst. Not especially burst safe or having, at least at a glance, something that makes it hard for them to be bursted. Then there's the last question. Does the character need to hit you to win? Meaning they have good knockdown, good set play? Or can they win from making you block? I kind of get the feeling from watching matches that the character needs to hit you. However, I think Bridget is pretty decent at building risk and pushing turns, and she's good at making characters whiff. Damage is pretty average for the character. That's my second to last question. How good is their damage? Damage kind of average. And then the last question is the wall break situation. So here we're talking about breaking the wall with a super. So question number 1 is, can the character safe jump off supers? Yes, so this is quite good actually. Not all characters are able to do this very easily, but also Bridget can choose to peel off. So next we must talk about defense. So defense is going to be definitely an exploration into frame data and stuff. So one is, how fast is their fastest button? So Bridget's fastest button is this, 2K, which is 5 frames. So there are positives and negatives to this. So one, it is nice that it's on a 2K because it's on a low. You can go into 2D, which is win condition for Bridget, but you can't mash on it, unfortunately. This is by against 5P in comparison. It's not especially low profile. Here's Testament for comparison. Notice how I'll never hit Testament here, but I'll always hit Bridget here. The fastest button being 5 frames also means there are some situations on defense where they can't threaten with an immediate punish. So you have to use system mechanics more instead, which can be difficult depending on how advanced you are on defense. So a super common example would be this move. This 2 and 4K from Giovanna is -4 on block. So this means that there's no attack that Bridget has that can punish this. If you want to straight up punish this move, you'll have to instant block. Next question. Do they have a meterless reversal? Yes, they have a DP. So of course this is good because you can challenge very small gaps. So while we're on Giovanna, this string actually has a 1 frame gap in between the 5K and 6P. If I try to jump, I get hit. If I try to throw, I get counter hit. But I can DP in between, which is very valuable. The next question is the character super vertical or horizontal? So in my opinion, supers that travel horizontally are more valuable as a reversal option than supers that travel vertically. So for example, when you're Geo, she has this, right? This is a super that travels very far horizontally and is fast. Where an example of a vertical super would be Winger. Winger travels up and then down. When you have meter, you can fly up and then PRC to safety and just run away. But the nice thing about having a horizontal super is that you can keep your opponent on their toes if they're trying to do something that might be normally safe to either a DP, if your character has one, or they're just trying to keep themselves attacking at a seemingly safe range. So a good example is with Kyle here. You have seen this a million times. And while there's a couple of answers to this type of setup, one really nice thing you can do if you have a horizontal super is just do it. So you could even do this even if they choose not to OTG. And this is purely because the super travels far horizontally. Now the issue you run into with Bridget, neither super has invulnerability, meaning the only reversal option that Bridget has is Starship, the DP. Next question is, how good is their backdash? So the way that I describe backdashes in the game, there's only 3 types, and it depends on how much invincibility you have. You either have a 4 frame invul backdash, 5 frame invul backdash, or a 6 frame invul backdash. Kyle here has a very standard backdash. It is 5 frames invulnerable, 20 frames total. So that means for the first 5 frames, the backdash is invincible, and then after that, the backdash is vulnerable. Bridget actually shares the same type with Milia and Mei. So Bridget has a 4-frame invulnerable backdash. So while Bridget has less invulnerability than other characters like Kyle, Soul, and then heavies like Nago, the upside is the total duration of the backdash is very fast. It's 17 frames. So not as fast as Milia and Mei, but it is essentially instant. So what this means is by the time the opponent sees this, Bridget is doing something already. These backdashes are generally really good in neutral, but not so good on defense. Next question is, how fast is the character 6P? Having a fast 6P can be a deciding factor in a match. So we're going to break down 6P. So what's important about 6P is both the speed of the 6P and then how fast the upper body invul activates, because it varies by character. So Milia has a top tier 6P. So what that means is she has a 9-frame 6P, so it's the fastest speed, and her above the knees invincibility activates on the 3rd frame and not the 4th frame. So if you look at a character's body, when you do 6P, the invincibility first starts above the waist and then later above the knees. Guilty Gear in all versions tend to describe invul on body parts like this, just above the knees, above the waist, things like that. So because of this, Milia can interrupt this string. Now Kyle also has a really good 6P, however, his invincibility activates later, so he will always get hit here. You can even see Kyle try to attempt to use the 6P, however, he fails and gets counter hit by Leo 6K. So returning to Bridget, Bridget's 6P is 10 frames, and the above the knees invincibility activates on frame 4. So it's a little harder to use on defense than some other characters. The next question is, how fast is the character's jump? So Bridget has a 4-frame jump, pretty standard for the game. The only speeds of jump in this game are 4 and 5 frames. Only the true big bodies, Gold Lewis, Nago, and Potemkin have 5-frame jumps. Having a slower jump just means it's harder to get out of stuff, but almost everyone has the same speed jump. So Bridget is fine here. And then the last question for defense is one we've kind of answered before. Does the character build meter quickly? Which overall I would say yes. This matters because you'll get DPRC, defensive BRC, YRC, and more quickly with meter. So the next part of this list is neutral. A neutral game when neither character is directly attacking each other or defending the other character. That's basically how I define it. So the first question is, can the character attack from safe ranges? Yes, for sure. This character has huge normals, large air normals, and can send the yo-yo out from very safe ranges, including anti-air, which is very nice. So how fast is the character's air dash? So Bridget has a standard air dash, which means that Bridget can act out of the air dash on frame 18. This is pretty common in the game. There is nothing slower than 18. 18 is normal. However, there are characters that have air dashes that are faster. So for example, Milia can act out of her air dash on frame 13, and Chip can act out of his air dash on frame 15. They have faster than normal instant air dashes. Being able to act out of your air dash quickly just means that you can attack faster for air dash. It's just good. Does the character have a slow jump H? Why does having a slow jump H matter? So Testament actually has one. This is the jump H. The reason why it matters is on an instant air dash, the jump H is going to hit very, very deep. So if the opponent is not ready to either anti-air this preemptively with like a 5P on the air dash in, or 6Ps very quickly, their 6P is going to get counter hit by this. So does Bridget have one? No. So Bridget has this instead. I think this move, Jump H, is very good though, because it attacks from quite a long range and it's disjointed. The next question, can they stall in the air? And oh goodness, yes. So you have a bunch of ways of doing this. You have JD stalls you can throw the yo-yo, you have rolling, and you can stop movement in various ways. This character is really good at varying their air mobility in general. The next question, can they 50-50 you from neutral? So this is not common. So for example, Testament can do this. If Testament makes you block this, this is an immediate, simple 50-50, where you do either JHD or JH2K. For Bridget, it can happen, but it's not common would be the call. You'd have to get them to actually block the rolling attack, which people are kind of looking for. So you're varying your movement quite a bit to not get hit out of this rolling attack. So I think it definitely happened, but it's not something that's as frequent as Zato or the times that Testament gets to jump in, thing like that. As a side note, being able to 50-50 somebody from neutral is not common. That is a top tier character aspect for sure. The next question, what can the character do after a gold burst? Can they get in? Can they put something on the screen that helps them win? Like what? So for example, Testament on the gold burst is pretty strong. You just get to set up a projectile real quick. This makes Testament's neutral better immediately, and Testament's at full screen, which of course as a projectile zooming character, you're happy when this happens. So I think Bridget is okay on the gold burst. You can set out a yo-yo, which is nice. The closer you are to the corner, the easier it is to just wheel on over, and you have meter now, so you can make it plus and 50-50 them right away. The next question would be, does the character have a burst RC option? So I actually, in Exert, I'd call it fuck it RC, honestly. And this is just a move you can just bust out when you have 50 meter. For one example of a very powerful one, we use Ram. This is fuck it RC, right? You just do it. It's huge. You get to run in. If it hits, they're dead probably. If they block, you build a bunch of risk. You just pull up and do your offense. So I would say yes for Bridget. The main one being this. And it has follow-ups as well, so you're able to travel really far. You can fate with it if you want. I think it's a good option. How fast is their 6P? We revisit this from defense. So it's 10 frames, but hitbox-wise, it is quite large and hits really high above. I think it's a very good 6P. Does the character have moves that prevent characters from using their standard tools in a situation? This is very similar to the stalling question. Can you stall in the air? And that would be my response for Bridget, is that Bridget has a lot of moves that help them stall, vary their momentum, vary how they move. So depending on the character, they might have to address these tools in a different way, and they might not be able to use their standard neutral plan, which is a good thing. And the last question for neutral, can the character convert all their hits into a good knockdown or wall break without using 50 meter? In my opinion, from watching matches, playing against the character, it seems that Bridget's conversion ability is average. So their best knockdown is probably 2k2d as far as like following offense. And then you have like throw and other hard knockdowns. But of most random hits, they're able to follow up with a meaty but not good offense, where characters that are like top tier usually can access their win condition from the majority of their hits, and they're able to convert quite a bit. So last aspect of the game, so knockdown. So can the character win off a throw? Basically, I would say yes. You get to set up rolling safely off throw. The next question is, how much resource can the character build off a successful throw mix? And this is still kind of up in the woods. I want to see more optimization for this character first before we make this choice. This is clearly important because if your character can win off a throw and build a lot of resource off hitting you with a throw, they can just end the game really fast. Can the character protect themselves from reversals and mix at the same time? I would say yes. So for example, we have the JD option for overhead here. So nice, no problem, and that will come back. So after that, I would get to push offense more. So for this knockdown, if I pick the same type of option, I'm safe to the reversal super, and I'm able to just punish. So the last question, is the good knockdown loopable? Essentially, yes. Of course, with more structure and more building, people get this really, really tight. So overall, I think this character has a lot of pros. Though offense is good, right? Plenty of moves that are advantageous, has fast overheads, has a way to do 5D, the overhead safely, has various ways of mixing you, good at building meter, safe against YRC, okay against burst. Now, probably the biggest downsides offense-wise is the average damage and the wall break situation just being kind of normal compared to top tier situations after wall break, like Zato Sword. And my impression is the character has to hit you to win, as opposed to winning because they make you block, which is not common. On defense, I would say they're okay overall. Their fastest button is a 5 frame, which is not a good thing, but Bridget has a DP, but they don't have a super with invincibility, which means the only thing the opponent has to target is DP. Backdash wise, not super great on defense, especially in the corner because it's a 4 frame invincible backdash, but it's good for mid-screen, it's good for neutral. The 6P is not super great for defense for really tight defensive situations, but they have the standard jump and they build meter quickly. Neutral is probably where the character shines the most, so Bridget is able to attack from safe ranges, has a standard air dash but big buttons and disjointed buttons. They don't have a slow jump H, but they're able to stall in the air and vary movement in a ton of ways. They can't reliably 50-50 from neutral, but Bridget is good after hitting gold bursts, and they have burst options like Kickstart My Heart. The 6P is good, it's very large, and close to the fastest speed, and the way that Bridget plays neutral doesn't let characters use their standard tools in neutral in a lot of situations. But unfortunately, the conversion ability is average compared to very strong characters. And last is the knockdown. So Bridget can definitely win off a throw. The character can protect themselves from reversals and mix at the same time, and the good knockdown is loopable. I know I posted a tier list pretty recently, and I put Bridget on there, but I put my prediction, like I think Bridget is good, but just not like a top tier character. Like the character is relevant. So if you're playing Bridget, I mean, you got a good pick. Honestly, I think this character is quite good. We got to see more, of course, as time goes on. I'll revisit Bridget in a month or two just to see where they're at. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.